The night was suffocatingly dark, so dark it felt like even the moon was too embarrassed to show its pale face. The wind howled through the forest, a chilling sound that made the treetops creak and scratch like skeletal fingers, warning of death's arrival. And there, at the far end of the woods, stood the massive, abandoned Mirza Mansion. Its walls were cracked, windows shattered, and ivy was swallowing its very bones. This was a place that seemed to breathe decay. The villagers had whispered warnings. They said no one survives a night in the Mirza Mansion. They claimed that anyone who dared to stay was never seen again. But I'm Aarav Sharma, an investigative journalist, with a camera slung around my neck, dusty boots on my feet, and my leather jacket zipped up against the bitter wind. I knew I wasn't leaving without the truth. They pleaded with me, "Death lives there. Let it sleep." But the hunger for truth devours fear. And I was starving. Rain-soaked ground squelched beneath my feet as I approached the giant wooden gates. They were covered in faded iron studs, with rust dripping down like streaks of dried blood. A rotten smell wrapped around me, a sickening mix of wet soil, old blood, and forgotten scriptures. And then it happened. A slow, agonizing creak echoed through the silence. The gates were opening by themselves, as if the mansion had been expecting me. Once inside, the darkness wasn't empty. It was alive. Dim lanterns flickered in the narrow hallways, casting shadows that seemed to move just before I did. Portraits of the Mirza family lined the walls, their painted faces slowly twisting as I passed. Their eyes, glowing faintly in the gloom, followed my every step. Then a whisper. It was breath-cold and sent a shiver deep into my spine. "You're late." I spun around, my heart pounding. There was no one there. But then my camera started recording on its own. Its little red light blinked like a malevolent eye in the suffocating dark. A grand staircase spiraled upward, its stone steps stained with dark rusted marks that looked disturbingly like dried blood. I cautiously made my way up to the upper corridor. From one of the rooms, I heard the eerie sound of a lullaby being sung by a child's voice. "Go to sleep. Before Father arrives." I pushed open the half-broken wooden door and stepped inside. It was a small antique bedroom. Torn red velvet curtains hung by the windows, and in the center of the room sat a single creaking cradle. Inside, it was a rag doll, dressed in a dusty white frock. Its two pitch-black button eyes stared right at me. And then the doll's head began to turn toward me. The sound of bones cracking filled the room as it slowly faced me. A child's voice, cold and ancient, spoke from the doll. "We have been waiting for you, Aarav." My heart froze. I had never told anyone my name. Behind the doll, I saw a framed picture on the wall. It was of a little girl, about 10 years old, wearing a white embroidered salwar with her hair in a braid, tied with a red ribbon. Below her photograph, written in faded Urdu, were the words, "Zoya Mirza died, 1923. As I stared, her painted face began to bleed from the eyes. A hollow laugh echoed through the mansion, a sound that devoured the very air around me. I had to get out. I rushed out of the room and towards a balcony, desperate for an escape. But a sudden, violent blast of icy wind slammed me back inside. The sound of chains dragging across the floor scraped against my nerves. A towering silhouette emerged from the shadows. It was a man. Half of his face was burnt to coal, while the other half was a pale, corpse blue. A tattered 1920s sherwani clung to his skeletal frame, and his hands were wrapped in broken iron shackles. His voice was the sound of a grave breaking open. "I am Yaqub Mirza," he rasped. "You disturbed my slumber." He reached a hand towards me, and the touch was colder than the farthest winter. "No one who enters leaves," he hissed. "You will join the Mirza bloodline forever." In a panic, I raised my camera and the flash went off. He recoiled, shrieking in pain. But then he began to laugh. A deep, chilling laugh. "Congratulations," he snarled. "Now I live in your memory." I bolted down the stairs, but the doors slammed shut and locked themselves. The portraits on every wall came alive. Their painted skin began to tear open, and blood oozed out, forming glowing letters on the walls. "Don't run. This is your home. Welcome, Aarav Mirza." I froze. My surname is Sharma, but my mother's side. Their name was Mirza. That was it. That's why the mansion had summoned me. I was one of them. A tiny figure then appeared in front of me. It was Zoya. Her feet hovered just above the floor, and those lifeless black button eyes stared into mine. "Father says," she whispered, her voice trembling, "Mirza blood must sleep here forever." She reached out and held my hand. It was small, freezing, and trembling. She looked scared, but not of me. She was scared of him. Suddenly, the main entrance door burst open. "Run," Zoya whispered urgently, "before father returns." I didn't need to be told twice. I sprinted out into the night. Branches whipped my face as I ran through the woods, the moonlight finally breaking through the thick canopy of trees. When I looked back, the mansion had vanished behind the trees. But the wind carried one last, terrifying whisper. "You will come back." Blood calls its own. It's been 3 months since that night. I'm back home, in my small apartment on the outskirts of Mumbai. The city lights glow through my curtains, a comforting sign of normal life. But it's not normal. Every night, exactly at 3:03 a.m., my camera turns itself on. The recordings are always the same. They show the Mirza Mansion, silent, yet waiting. Then a figure begins to climb its staircase. A man wearing my jacket, walking with my gait. It's me, and in every video I can hear Zoya's faint whisper, "You're late." The final frame of every recording always reveals the same nightmare, a new portrait hanging on the mansion's wall, right beside the Mirza's. It's a portrait of me, and beneath it, written in dark, fresh blood, are the words, "Alive are you." But for how long? Thanks for watching. If you want more stories that will keep you up at night, make sure to subscribe.